What's happening? Welcome to On the One. I'm your host, Cory Wong. Today, we're going to do a production breakdown, writing, arrangement breakdown, of a brand new tune of mine featuring Brice Hornsby called Quotidian Fields. Interesting title. It's a file name that Brice sent me several months ago. I'm not going to lie. I have been Hornsby fanboy. Okay, I've been trying to work with Hornsby for years. I interviewed him for my podcast, Dream Come True. We started talking back and forth. Oh, maybe it'd be fun to work on something, blah, 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 this and that. I meant it. I never know if people mean it when they say, yeah. I gave him a couple months. Finally emailed him back. Was like, hey, I mean it. I'm working on something. Are you down? He said, guess what? I got some stuff that I worked on for a Spike Lee film several years ago. Bunch of ideas. Some stuff got used. Some stuff didn't. I'm going to just hit you with some piano stuff that never got used, that were just ideas germinating that just never came to life. Sent him over. And the second I heard this one, that's Hornsby. I don't know what it is. The first 2 seconds of this song, you just know that it's Hornsby. It's a piano. That's the thing that's funny to me is sometimes somebody will just sit down on an instrument and the way that they play, this is just a piano. I'm not talking about anybody could come up and just play some. But for whatever reason, within the first 2 seconds, you just know this is Hornsby. Couldn't be anybody else. Couldn't be anybody else. It's Hornsby. I was like, that's the one. And all of a sudden, I was driving through from Salt Lake City to Park City. He sent me this track. I'm listening to it on my headphones. And all of a sudden, I'm getting all this imagery. I had this vision for the song, which is exactly what I needed. Because a lot of instrumental music, for me, I need something to point to. I need something to visualize. I need a target to shoot at. I need something to score or whatever. I don't know. So I thought of it. I was listening to this. I closed my eyes, driving through the mountains. I'm not driving. Okay. I'm sitting in the back seat. I'm picturing a grandfather clock in the middle of a red valley, desert area with mountains around. There's a grandfather clock, and the piano is the grandfather clock. And there's these little, but as you zoom in, you can start to see the small, intricate moving things, and I needed something to represent that. And then there was this landscape around, and there was just this, what felt like this beautiful American scenery, something that like only could exist in America in the landscape or whatever. And it was just like this weird old grandfather clock sitting there that felt iconic and timeless. And it shouldn't be so mechanical in the middle of this amazing just nature landscape. And that was the vision for this. So for me, Brice's piano is the grandfather clock. And then I wanted to have the guitar parts be the little intricate moving things inside of the clock, all those small mechanical pieces. And then I just wanted these other things that felt very recognizable. So it's the sort of thing like a fretless bass. You know it from a mile away. You see King's Peak, you know it's King's Peak. You see Mount Fuji, you know it's Mount Fuji. Okay, Mount Rainier, you just know it. I'm looking for that kind of iconic thing when you just see it. Fretless bass. Hammond organ, just giving a little bit of air and the clouds, the strings, the woodwinds. These are telling the story. These are the things that kind of make it feel like where it exists on Earth. So I wanted to have some of this kind of Aaron Copland being in America sort of feel, some of this modern kind of classical folk-y things happening, and then also some sort of triumphant stuff happening, which comes from the brass later on. So the process was I recorded the rhythm section around Brice's piano. Brice sent me this, and I rearranged some of the parts, and he had different sections just kind of recorded and said, take it and run with it. I said, I got this. Okay, I need this. He sent me a couple other things. I built an arrangement with the piano and everything else in mind, made a MIDI mock-up of some things, went in and recorded the rhythm section with Petar Janic on drums, Johannes Tona on bass, Kevin Gastonway on keys. We recorded over at John Fields' Strawberries studio in Minneapolis. And then I had a bunch of other ideas for arrangement things, and knowing that I was going in with Metropole Orkest, I thought, oh, this would be a great opportunity to get Vince Mendoza to work on the project together, because Vince was the artistic director with Metropole for years, and he was the conductor when I did a small tour with Metropole several years ago as well. Incredible arranger, did stuff with Joni Mitchell, Matheny, Shaka. I mean, it's so many. I feel foolish even saying any, because Vince is he's known as an incredible writer and arranger, and I knew he was the right cat for this. So we went back and forth. How much presence do you want for the orchestra? Gave him the vision for things. Here's the piano stuff. Here's the guitar stuff. Here's where it might feel like it's just a part, but it's really kind of the melody. Let's accentuate that with the strings here, the woodwinds there. Here's a part where the piano is just going to cut out, and I want the strings to take over. Here's where it's going to get really big. Here's where I want it to feel like the Avengers coming together or whatever. That's always, for whatever reason, some sort of vision in my mind. So let's dial into this. If you look at the Pro Tools session, I have it organized with the drums up top. Then I have like the electronic percussion that I programmed, some other natural organic percussion, the bass track, the organ, some other keyboards that we did. Interesting synth track that Bruce sent me. Bruce's piano, just stereo track that he sent me. A bunch of guitars that kind of make up the inside of the clock. And then the orchestra is organized by the percussion section, which was vibraphone, glockenspiel, timpani, and tubular bells. The string section, which is made up of 4 violin ones, 4 violin twos, 3 violas, 4 cellos, 3 double basses. And we did a little overdub at the beginning just of the basses. And then the woodwind section is bass clarinet, 2 clarinets, 2 flutes, and an oboe. And we also actually recorded the French horn along with this, because the role of the French horn on this tune fit as part of the woodwind section. The harp is its own thing, and then the brass section is its own as well. 4 trumpets, 3 trombones, and 1 bass trombone. Now, if you watch my other On the One video of the collab with Metropole Orkest, the song Burnin', basically what I wanted to do is have as much control and isolation over these instruments as possible. So I had one day where I recorded the rhythm section, and then the next day I did the brass, just the brass, so I would have full control over that. I could have them nice and tight. I could have them feel big if I needed. Next day was woodwinds with harp. The next day was strings. And the next day, orchestral percussion. So I was able to really get in the weeds if I wanted to and get things right where I wanted mix-wise. Because sometimes if you record the whole orchestra together, everybody's bleeding into each other and everything just becomes a room mic for everything else. So it's hard to have anything feel really up close. Let's start by diving in with Bruce. This is what he sent me. He sent me a track of piano plus this little synth track, when really is just his MacBook Pro microphone recording the ambiance on his airplane. He was on some sort of flight, and he's just sitting there. He's like, this sounds cool, whatever's happening. And this is that sound. Right? Sick. I put some effects and stuff on it too. I mean, I think he processed it. He probably put some other stuff on it, and I did a little bit of processing too. But it's just cool that it came from just sitting in the plane, vibing, and then just, I'm going to have to press record on my MacBook Pro and capture this. By the way, also, when we were talking about writing, he was like, are we going to have to come up with lyrics and stuff? I was like, no. It ain't like that, man. I want to hear your piano. Because to me, Again, like I said earlier, Bruce is one of those cats. Within 2 bars, you just know that it's Bruce Hornsby. And he's one of my favorite singers of all time. But in the case of this project, I wanted it to be all instrumental. And what a cool way to feature somebody who's got that kind of iconic voice and just let that speak what needs to be spoken. So here's the piano and the airplane vibe.
2, 3, 4.
Come on. And here it is later. Come on, that's beautiful. So again, what I wanted to do is create other things that felt iconic around it. A fretless bass, you just know it's fretless. You know I had to put that Uber mod on. By the way, it was like pulling teeth to get Johannes to play fretless. He did about 4 takes on fretted bass. I'm like, dude, just pick up the fretless. He's like, no, this sounds bad. I'm like, pick up the fretless, dude. I think he was apprehensive because it was a studio fretless. He wasn't as comfortable on it. So I think he just was like, I don't want it to sound bad. So here's what he had at the very first take. This is the first time around with the line that we had come up with on a fretted bass. And obviously still trying to figure out the part. Okay, fine. But it just doesn't feel as iconic as... I wanted just less motion in there. Do-do-de-do, instead of do-do-de-do-do-de-do-do. It just felt more hooky this way, and it allowed the fretless to sing a little bit more. And I'll kind of work backwards on some of this stuff randomly. Okay, yeah, we had these little bongos. They're like bongo cajon things. I don't know how to describe it. It was John had it in the studio. I was like, oh, hit that with your fingers. Just play really light. The guitarist playing. I'm like, no. Just like hit lighter. Hit lighter. Don't da. Just barely hit it at all. And that's the... that woodpecker. That sort of organic thing is nice to give a little bit of a juxtaposition to the kind of electronic drum programming that I did. I wanted it to feel like a heartbeat, but also still have some of that feeling of mechanical noise at the inside of the grandfather clock. And later, and once the drums are in, it's a really big build. Yeah, so it's cool. This one was a little harder. For whatever reason, this was the hardest drum song to mix on the album. At the end of the day, I wish he maybe just in general would have approached it same energy, but more Antonio Sanchez style, quieter intensity. Same subdivision is fine, but where it doesn't need to hit as hard and still have a certain timbre and feeling to it. If I could go back and get one more pass, I'd get it a little quieter. More of just reserved intensity. Kevin G on the organ. It's a real B3, baby. Tucked in there. The guitar part on this one is one of the more interesting things guitar-wise on this album because it's really playing a specific role. And honestly, I don't know what I'm going to do for this live because it's very much a and it's a lot of parts doing it. Put it along with this. The roll starts to change once it gets to the bridge. Not normally played over this sort of thing, but it felt appropriate. I didn't feel like I needed to do any chords. Fun. Orchestral percussion. Kind of playing the role of ear candy and just being present. Enhancing the piano part a little bit. That sort of thing. And later we got... Wake up, Ebenezer. It gives it this old regal feeling, you know? String section. Everybody's close mic'd. You see, processing-wise, I just got some EQ, mostly just taking out some low end on the violins and stuff. Engineers did an amazing job on this, so I didn't need to do as much. Sick. There's a real string section right there. Oh my gosh. It's real cats, you know? Couple little things intonation-wise in there. That's fine. I'm cool with it. I want the human element. I want the human quality. All my favorite music has a little bit of that. Woodwinds crushed this one. I love the clarinet. I love the bass clarinet. Way underutilized. Oh my gosh. By the way, when I'm mixing this, I have my measure numbers in Pro Tools matching my measure numbers on the score. So I follow along as I'm going early in the process, make sure everything is accounted for. I'll get into that in a minute on kind of my philosophy of how to listen and what to listen for. But this... Come on. See, the clarinets turned over to saxes there. Cats getting their union doubles in. Here's a fun one. The harp. Oh my gosh. A real harp player? Are you kidding me? I had no idea how good this could be. Check this out. That is so pretty. Like somebody's about to grant my wish or something, you know? Woo! That's great. Horn section. Patiently waiting until the very end. Check this out. Check this out. Come on. So let's take out the rhythm section. Let's just get strings, woodwinds, harp, brass here. Let's get that section.
Score a movie.
You don't think I'm working on it? You don't think I'm trying to get a film scoring gig out of this? I'd be scoring movies if people hired me. Said I got to keep making albums. which I don't mind, by the way. I like making albums. People are like, oh, yeah, you're writing all the time. You always release music. Yeah, because it's fun, because this is what I'm meant to do with my life. This is what I like doing. This is fun. But yeah, number one, I want to be doing the Mario Kart soundtrack, okay? I've said it before. I'd go harder for Nintendo than anybody would ever go hard for Nintendo. Okay, I've said this all over the internet. I would go so hard for Nintendo. I want to score a film. Yeah. So even that's like, take this album as my audition reel for those of you folks that wouldn't think I could do it. Come at me. Come at me. Let's go. Let's go. As far as plugins go on this session, I honestly didn't use a ton all around. EQ and compression to kind of tighten things up. But the places where there is something interesting happen, like on the electronic drums, I'm just taking a lot of top end off. I'm EQing out a ton of top end on things. That guy, like you can see on these kicks, it's just, I wanted a really round kick. And I also didn't want it to just get in the way of the other drums once they came in. On the bass, the Valhalla Uber mod, that gives it kind of part of its character. The bass itself, but also that Uber mod. Here's without it. Fine. And I also have some reverb on it. Looks like a deverb. Honestly, I never use the deverb. This must have just like been what we used while we were recording, and it sounded good. Cool, whatever. That's what we're using on this bass verb. I'm actually surprised I didn't replace that with a Valhalla. I would normally replace that with the Valhalla vintage verb. That one slipped past me. Who cares? All right, on the piano, somebody's asking, the real magic in this is the Valhalla shimmer. Without it, but with the Valhalla shimmer, woo-hoo-hoo. That is nice. I love sounds like an aggressive cut there. It doesn't in the track. But yeah, this Valhalla shimmer, I love this plugin. It just gives it a thing, you know? It puts it all of a sudden in this. Honestly, maybe 20 years from now, 10 years from now, it might be one of those things I look back on. I'm like, really? We used to use that verb on so much stuff. Tell you what, feels really great right now. Feels really great. As far as the guitar processing, I'm using the Archetype Cory Wong plugin on everything. And I use this Transient Master. This is something that I'll do to take a little bit of the sustain out if I'm doing that sort of stuff. I add a little attack, take out some of the sustain, and it just kind of makes it even tighter. It makes it even more bongo-esque. Less ring. Other than that, as far as plugins, I mean, I have a Valhalla vintage verb on the strings and the woodwinds. Pretty much same sort of stuff. And then I kind of give it all of that so it has a similar sort of feel to it. But the way that I mixed this stuff, it's the brass are all in their own sub-mix, and I mix that. And a very general thing on this project, I started using this Soothe 2 plugin a lot more. Honestly, I've had it on my computer for a long time, and other people are like, oh my gosh, you got to get moving on this thing. You got to use it more, blah, 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 blah. I can't believe I've been sleeping on this. It's a dynamic processing thing. So it just kind of finds the harsh frequencies and it takes them out when they need to be taken out. You can set it to be different things, but I'll set it a little bit different for the brass than I do with the strings, but It just kind of evens things out, makes it a little more pleasant. It's not as harsh of a bright to my ear, and I like it. So that's my thing. I like darker sounds in general. That one, it's not too much, because when it needs to be bright, it is. It's just like when something starts to get annoying, it takes it out. So one of the fun things compositionally about this tune is that everything is written around Bruce's piano part. So you heard the part that I played earlier. All these things are these ideas that he had that I kind of pieced together to tell a story and to sit in the centerpiece of this thing. The kind of movie, the picture that I'm seeing in my head with this landscape, the grandfather clock in the middle of the valley, it's just always in the center of the screen. And everything is built around it. Although there's other moments where you'd maybe see more action or something that feels more vibrant elsewhere in the imagery, it's still all built around Bruce's piano part. So when it gets to the bridge part, his part is very simple, but I wrote everything around it. Right there, that chord right there, that's Bruce. See what I'm saying? It's all right there. Actually, it's really nice. There's a lot there, but there's enough of it just to be a frame of, here, Cory, fill in the blanks. What are you hearing with this? And there's so much room for interpretation to build on top of what it is that he sent, which actually was really fun because there's a lot of different ways that I could have taken it. And he just said, go for it. I sent some ideas. I told him about my vision of the grandfather clock and all this stuff. He's like, wow, yeah, that's it, dude. Find the vision, go for it. And then I went back and forth on, okay, here's how I think this could function. Here's how I think this could function. Here's where it feels like it could do this. Are you okay if we cut the piano at this spot and have it just the orchestra and then build it all back in? And I think Bruce seeing the excitement of me taking this and run with it made him really excited because it's these ideas that he's had and maybe didn't know exactly how to develop them or what to develop them into. He could have developed them into whatever he wanted, I'm sure, in his own way. But that's what's fun about the collaborative process is that we can kind of go back and forth. He'll send me something and I all of a sudden have this very specific visual in my head that I can now start to place things in that picture. And I think when I'm writing and when I'm collaborating, that's a lot of the way that my brain is thinking about things is there's an image that I see and I want sonically to represent that. And I don't care if the listener knows that story or not, or if the listener feels that. But I think that if I have an intention with what I'm writing and what I'm making and how we're arranging this, then it really helps give a little more purpose to everything and it makes it feel more cohesive. And then the listener can kind of come up with their own story for it. And that's what's interesting about this also is that the melody gets passed around. It's a pretty simple tune at the end of the day. It's very simple. There's not a lot to it, but the way that we arranged it is the melody kind of morphs from one section to the next, and the focal point kind of gets shifted around, and there is a lot of interesting subdivision happening in the way that I arrange the guitars and the rhythm section, and there's different kind of iconic melodies to it, but they all work together and they weave together, and it's just taking one nugget of an idea and kind of passing it around the orchestra. That was our approach with this, and it was really fun to do because it made Vince Mendoza and I approach how to present this tune in a very specific way. And the orchestra could have just always kind of laid back and let the piano be its thing, let the guitar thing be way up front, but it felt more magnetic. It felt like a more fully realized vision to have everybody take their moments and to have it start with the piano and bass and kind of end back there. It felt more like, here you are, close up of the grandfather clock, moves way out. You can see everything around it. And then at the end of the song, it kind of moves back in. And with that sort of vision, it sounds absurd, but it kind of wrote and arranged itself with that much vision and intention. So it was a really fun one to do. Hard to mix because there's so many different things that I could accentuate. And I didn't want to go overboard on making it sound, so pristine and everything. I wanted the human qualities there. You could hear Bruce's foot tapping on the piano track. Sometimes you can hear a page turn happening in the orchestra in one of the tracks. And actually on this song, although some people's instincts would be the opposite, I like it because it humanizes it a little bit. Some stuff's a tiny bit out of tune here and there. Okay, fine. Who cares? Does it have the thing? And I think those sort of human elements are what I wanted to bring to this, where there's just no MIDI involved. Especially nowadays, it's so hard to do an orchestra project without MIDI because, well, it's just hard to do. There's a lot of people to coordinate. It takes a lot of resources to do so. And Metropole Orkest and we were both very excited to do this project, and we both really wanted to do whatever we could to make it happen. So I'm thrilled that they wanted to do this, and it was really fun to collaborate with Bruce on this in the writing and with Vince Mendoza on the arranging. It was just a fantastic experience, and I hope you enjoy it as much as I enjoyed making it. So we'll see you next time. Peace! That's gonna work. That's gonna work.